All right. Well, we'll get cruising here. It's good to see you guys. If you're listening virtually, I hope this is helpful and feel free to message me with questions. And same if you're here, but you can ask me the questions live. Um, I'm gonna try my hardest to keep this to an hour, but I love triathlon, so sometimes I get out of hand. But I'm gonna do my best. If you're not familiar with me, I've done a lot of sprints and Olympics, but I've settled on 70.3 these days. I love that distance. I've done 12 of them. Two more on tap for this year. I've also raced Xterra, which is off-road triathlon. I've done one full Ironman up in Lake Placid. Some people are in love with that distance. I think I'm still content at the 70.3 distance for now. So yeah, that's a bit about me. Been doing this for some time. I love it, and I'm excited to help more folks learn more about it and get some races on the calendar this year. So, this is what we're going to go over today. Going to kind of go over a rough run through of everything, and you get to look at these fun pictures of me the whole time. Okay, race distances. Hopefully, we're somewhat familiar with what's going on here, at least as you're starting to look at races. So, we have that super sprint distance, what we're going to see at some of our local triathlons here in Connecticut. We've got that at the Lake T races. It's a great intro for folks. It's a great race to find some quicker speed if you're trying to challenge yourself. It's a fun distance, right? It can be, but you'll mostly see those sprints and Olympics around here. And then Ironman is typically what we call our 70.3s and full Ironman races. Ironman is a brand, but that's usually what we call the halves and fulls. There are some more locally owned businesses out there, like the Patriot Half Wheel here is a big one around here. So it's at 70.3 distance, but like Ironman owns the rights to 70.3 or something along those lines. I don't think anyone here is doing like draft legal Olympic ITU type stuff, but that stuff does exist. We are in an Olympic year. So those folks are racing sprints and Olympics throughout the year, and then they'll be draft legal. Not a lot of that stuff left in the United States, unfortunately. So those are race distances. Feel free to interrupt me anytime if you guys have questions. Certain points I'll stop though for sure. So how to pick a race. This can be super overwhelming, and I get asked this all the time, like, what's a good local race? Obviously talking to people like us, talking to people on the page, your friends, that's a great way to find out about races around here. But there are some things to consider, depending on, what your goals are, where you're heading, and things like that. Cost, like anything, this stuff adds up quick. So you got your race entry, lodging, travel, car, a bike. If you're flying somewhere with your bicycle, you have to factor that in, making sure you have a vehicle that is big enough for your bike, all that good stuff. Bike transportation, easy if we can drive, more complicated if we fly. In this picture on here, you can see those black boxes. Those are bike boxes. Totally possible to fly with your bike. It comes with all sorts of risks, but plenty of us do it all the time. A bike box is an easy way. There is something called bike flights where they send you, a pretty intense cardboard box that you can put your bike in and fly it to wherever you're going. Some bike shops are connected with bike flights, or you can do it through, I think it's like UPS or FedEx, one of those. It's nice because you don't have to deal with the bike in the airport. What's a little more complicated is usually you're without your bike for a few weeks before the event and a few weeks after while it gets transported. So if you own multiple bikes, maybe that's fine. If that's your own bike, you're going to be not training for a little bit on that bike. Location of your races all over the world, right? Obviously around here, our race season is pretty short due to the lovely weather. So keeping that in mind, I am doing a race on Sunday in New Jersey, which is definitely an early season race. So when you're picking something like that, you can be prepared for probably one of the coldest swims you'll do. So picking a race is important. If things like cold water, right, aren't your thing, then maybe you don't want to race, early season in this area. Race distance, obviously important. Weather, we live in New England. I think everyone here does. Um, if it's December and you're flying to Florida to do a race, gonna want to do some heat prep, right? Same thing as heading out west going to altitude. Colorado's a beautiful place. They have a lot of races, but racing out there is really hard if you're not used to altitude, if you're not doing training blocks out there and things like that. Some other things to consider when picking a race, if you have goals to qualify for certain things, right, that's going to matter. You're going to need to go to certain races to qualify for certain things. And then another consideration is a USAT, is USA Triathlon. That's our federation. You'll need a license if a race is USAT sanctioned. So there are some races in this area that are USAT sanctioned. You can totally get a 1-day license. I think it's like $15. But if you're going to race a few triathlons a year, it's worth it just to buy the 1-year license with that. So all of that is done on USA Triathlon's website. When you register for a race, they'll usually ask for a USAT number, so you can pay ahead of time, or they'll catch you at the race for that. As far as where do you find races, again, talking to folks that you know. Ironman has a very extensive website that has all of their races. TriReg is a website, not used as frequently, but it's out there. Google, right? There's all sorts of sites out there, but I would say probably the best bet is just asking your buddies, joining a local group and asking them, asking our page, local triathlon club. Usually those people have good insight, have done a lot of the races, and can kind of tell you the ins and outs. All right, questions so far. All right. All right, race day tips. I could probably make like 12 slides on this, but try to keep it simple for now. If the race requires some kind of accommodations, book them early. A lot of these races, they say they're in whatever city, but really the race is like outside of the city, right? So, for example, Challenge Miami took place a couple months ago, but it was like in Homestead, which is like an hour from Miami, right? So, and then a bunch of athletes are going to flood into this town, and then you may be getting pushed pretty far out for accommodations. So, book early if you need accommodations and you don't want to pay up the wall or stay an hour away. If the race has an athlete guide or an athlete meeting or an online video, please, 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 please take the time to watch those and read through those. I've done a zillion races and I still read the athlete guides. I print the pages out and I highlight them because I'm a little old school in that sense. But that stuff has good information. Athlete briefings are great because they can give you tips about the course. I don't know, maybe there's a lot of potholes on this road on the bike, or something about the swim, change in an aid station last minute or something. So it's just, I know those things can be hard to squeeze in, but it's definitely worth it, and it provides good information. And though, yes, most of these races, are similar, there are races that have very, very unique rules.
So Hunter, what's in
yeah.
the athlete guide?
So that will depend on the race. So Ironman's athlete guide is like super extensive, right? It goes through swim, bike, run, the course, tips on it, water temperature, different rules on the bike, different rules on the run. It's very extensive. A lot of that stuff will stay the same, but some examples of things that I have come across in some Ironman racing is speed traps on the bike. So if there's like a pretty big downhill into some kind of sketchy corner, they'll time that section. If you go over that, they disqualify you. They don't care if you're a world champion or Joe Schmo back of the pack, disqualified. So like you'll get some important information like that. They might tell you the brands of like products at the aid stations, um, parking details, if there's a bag drop off or not, right? So I would like Ironman, you're always gonna get one, the Lake T Olympic triathlon. You're probably not gonna get an athlete guide, but they'll have like a quick meeting the morning before the race. But some of these bigger races will even have like athlete briefings, like Ironman always does, multiple times throughout the day, and I always try to go. Again, I know the basics of what I'm doing, but those few tips about the course can just always be helpful. Did that answer your question? Okay. Um,
Yes.
if you have questions at a race, like don't be afraid to ask someone. Like if the people working the packet pick up, if they don't know the answer, they can direct you to someone. If you have questions for referees, go up and ask them. I am in the process of becoming a USA Triathlon ref, and they want you present in transition. They want you answering questions for folks. So don't be intimidated to ask questions. Most likely you're not the only one with that question. And people want to help, right? So find the friendly faces, find folks that are wearing the race shirt and ask them questions if you have them. Course preview, this is tricky, right? Like locally, right? We may be able to go to the course and ride it. Not all courses are safe to ride without being race day and having some of that traffic control. If we're flying somewhere, obviously a little harder to practice the course. So if you're local, and you can, and it's safe, ride the route, get some buddies together and go up there and do it. I've started to drive the routes when we go somewhere or drive certain sections of it. Again, if you've heard this is a scary downhill or this is a massive climb, right? I just like to go and see what it looks like. I've done races where I haven't done this, but I do think it's helpful, especially if you've heard about the same part of the course and you're feeling a little intimidated, it can ease some of that for you. Some races will have, there's all sorts of stuff out there on Facebook these days, but some races will have, little GoPro videos of the course or someone that does a brief video about the course. Like anything you can find, I think it's worth watching. Um, Take what you want, leave what you don't. Leave what you don't
So
for that.
what about riding like the course on your trainer? And how
Hmm.
you can get them like,
Yeah.
on Roovy or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that stuff is great. I personally haven't done it because I don't use any of that technology because it's very overwhelming to me. But plenty of people do, and I think that gives you a good idea of like what you're in for, right? A good idea of elevation. Um, I definitely think it can help for sure. Okay, check to see details of the on-course nutrition. So like I said, your local races are going to be pretty basic. There's going to be like water and some orange slices at the aid station, right? The bigger the race, the more funds they have. Ironman will give you a detailed sheet on we have this flavor gel, that flavor gel, this flavor hot topic, Mortal Hydration on course. They just changed their sponsor from Gatorade to Mortal. But they do that. So if you want to train with those products, you can. So some people choose to carry their own nutrition. Some people choose to train with the on-course nutrition. Again, smaller local race, probably carry most of your stuff. They may have a water stop here and there. But I wouldn't be as dependent on those aid stops the smaller the race. They just don't have the funds and the people and the things like that, and you don't want to get caught out without some water an hour into your day. Does the race have a Facebook page you can follow? Again, the internet can be a great place. Some of these pages get a little out of hand and you can get intimidated by stuff that's like not even real. So again, like tread with caution, but I've also found it can be very helpful from locals that live there. Anything to, hey, what's the good hotel around here? What's this course like? How many potholes? What's the water temperature these days, right? Like those pages can be helpful. Morning clothes bags and bike and run bags. So for your shorter distance races, you're most likely not going to have these. Some of your bigger races, you will have bags, as you can see in my picture. This was for my Ironman. So a lot of gear to sort through, a lot of personal needs bags, gear bags, gels. Um, this setup was not for me to put in this presentation. This is like actually what I did before the race to get myself organized. So laying your stuff out if you need to. The longer the distance, the more stuff, the more nutrition. Lay it out, have a check sheet, all that good stuff. A morning clothes bag is kind of like a little chilly when we start. You have a sweatshirt, you can put it in this bag that has your number on it and drop it in a safe space and get it after your race. If you can, travel with buddies because then they can hold your bags. But that is an option at some races. Don't forget to eat breakfast. We can get a little nervous, but breakfast is so important. I usually eat breakfast and then a little snack when I get to the race and then a gel right before I race. So you need to eat, please. Get to races early and give yourself time, right? There's nothing worse when we're nervous and we're rushing and we can't find something, and inevitably that's the time when things go wrong. Take time in transition to set up. Transition is a fun time. It can be a little complicated. Um, I give myself a lot of time in transition. So, like I look at where my bike is racked. I walk in from the swim exit to my bike, right? I like walk that path. I walk with the bike out just to try to see where I'm at, get some points of the land to try to figure out where to find my bike after, make sure I have all my stuff set up. So I usually do all of that. I leave, I do what I need to do, and then I come back shortly before transition closes to make sure no one's booped my stuff around. These things tend to be very, very, very narrow, the space you have. So sometimes people will accidentally just knock something and they don't mean to. So I just like to go check one last time to make sure everything's in its place. Transition is one of those things that seems so simple and like, why do we talk about it? But it gets like really complicated after you're swimming and your heart rate's high and you're wet and you're trying to get your shoes on and things like that. So we'll get to transition setups in a second here. And then, yeah, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Get your questions answered. People want to help. All right, cruising along. So transition setup. So you can see here couple different examples. The way I like to think of it is if, a hand towel is kind of like a long rectangle, think about like that's the space that you have to set up your stuff. So usually you'll have your bike racked in one direction. They should be on the rack every other way with the handlebars, but sometimes that gets little out of hand. If it's a USA triathlon race, that is a rule. Officials will be in there making sure bikes are opposite of each other. Your bigger race, you'll have your number, will have an assignment on the rack, and so you have to rack it there. Your smaller local races is kind of like a first come, first serve for the bike racks and transition. But you got this little area of stuff. You do not want to be the person that comes in with like a picnic and a big blanket and a towel and a bucket and all this stuff because people are going to get a little flustered. So try to keep your stuff in this rectangle, and it's possible. On the left, you can see in this picture, the way I've grouped this stuff is based on the sport. So my bicycle has my nutrition and my water bottles and my helmet all on it somewhere. And pretty much for the bike, I'm just popping on these shoes and everything else is on my bike. If you're putting nutrition in pockets on your kit or something like that, I would put the nutrition either right next to this or in the shoes. You don't want to miss your nutrition. In the back is my run setup because that's the second thing I'm going to get. So that's got my number, my hat, my shoes, and then I carry a little handheld water, which has a bunch of my nutrition in the little pocket it has. This picture on the right is more of like a display of the things you will need in transition. But for your bike stuff, try to like hang the helmet on the handlebars, put the sunglasses in the helmet, have your water bottles in there. And then if your bike has storage for nutrition, great. If you need to put that on your kit after, I would put that right next to those bike shoes or in the shoes so you don't miss it. Transition is great to play around with at home. Lay your stuff out, set it up, work on getting out of your wetsuit, getting into your shoes, getting out of that stuff. It's just good to have a system. Like okay, this is the flow I'm gonna do this stuff in. Um, yeah, you can take your time in transition. That's no problem. You just don't want to forget anything. And I've seen it all, right? People going on the run with their helmets on, people going out on the bike with their wetsuits on at every level. I watched a lot of triathlon, and pros will do the silliest of things too. So it's not just us. But practice transition. It's definitely a good thing to do, especially when you're first starting out. That's why I like to do an early season race before I get into my 70.3 season, because the first time in transition for a year, I feel like I'm a hot mess. Like, what do I do again? Okay. In it, there are all sorts of like gear bags that can be helpful for this, because you do need a lot of gear, and maybe your typical like grocery bag or backpack doesn't carry it. So they do make some nice transition bags. Um, we have little plug for Women on Wheels. Pedal Industries has customized some bags for us that gets sent out in all the newsletters, or I can shoot you the link. I have I don't know how you say it, OGO, the OGIO brand. I have a transition bag from them. It's just nice because it'll have a spot for your wetsuit, a spot for your helmet, fits your shoes, a spot for sunglasses, so it can kind of help you organize. Um, Practicing transitions. Yeah. Questions about transition setup? All right. On to the swim. Okay. So if you're brand new to this, you may be confused on why you can't wear your regular cycling kit to a triathlon. So the biggest difference there is going to be the chamois, which is the padding. So your cycling kit has a nice big cushy chamois, so it's comfortable. Your triathlon kit has a very thin chamois because we are doing all three sports in the same outfit. So if we wore our cycling kit in the water, we're essentially going to have like a soggy diaper on the entire day, and we don't want that. Triathlon specific clothing will have material that's going to dry quickly, and a chamois that's not going to be this like big soggy thing on us. So kits come in 2 pieces, 1 pieces, sleeves, no sleeves, pros and cons to all of it. I think a lot of folks start off in the 2 pieces. It's less intimidating. It's easier to go to the bathroom, so on and so forth. I think the more you get into it and the longer distance you go, the 1 piece is nice. Just like the idea of shorts versus bibs. When we're cycling, the bibs stay a little closer to you, stay put a little better. That's the same idea with the 1 piece. If you use porta potties, it complicates the situation. If you learn how to pee on the bike, it's no big deal. So to each their own. I've done both. You can get out of the kit, you can get back in it. As far as sleeveless versus sleeves, I think the sleeves are nice the longer the distance you're doing. If you're really pale like me, it's going to be less sunburn. It's going to protect you a bit. But some people feel a little restricted in the short sleeves. So it's a preference, but there's all sorts of styles out there. Goggles, so tinted versus clear. Most people are going to be wearing tinted goggles in open water swimming. The sun's rising. You're going to want some protection from that sun. Wetsuit versus no wetsuit. People see wetsuits as a big barrier getting into triathlon because they're expensive. You don't need a wetsuit to participate in triathlon. Now, if you are doing a race like I am this weekend, it's going to be absolutely freezing. It's most likely going to be wetsuit mandatory. So the water is so cold, and because it is a sanctioned race, you will not be allowed to swim unless you are wearing a wetsuit. And quite frankly, you would be crazy to want to swim without a wetsuit this weekend. Now, later into the year, when things warm up, it's going to be wetsuit optional, right? So if you have a wetsuit, great, people wear them because it makes you faster. If you don't, because it's a money thing, it is not the end of the world at all. You can participate. Very, very rarely is it way too hot that you're not allowed to wear the wetsuit. So when you get to that point, there's a definite no. And then there's a time where it's like not wetsuit legal if you want to participate in awards, but if the wetsuit is like your comfort thing and you could care less about a podium spot, you are allowed to wear a wetsuit and they'll kind of start you in the back. So that's a bit race dependent. Usually you don't have to worry about it. It's within the temperature range. But there can be that extreme end of things where it's mandatory either way to wear one or to not wear one. We are partnered with Sailfish, which is a wetsuit company. I'm getting a demo fleet of wetsuits. So if you're in the market, I will have the fleet hopefully for a good bit. They don't have anything on the calendar. So right now we have them for our Lake Placid trip, for the season kickoff party at my house. My parents have a pool, so you're like welcome to put it on and jump in there. And then we're doing 2 swim clinics at Lake T. So as of right now, I should have these suits for like almost a month, as long as they don't get something on the calendar. So worth checking out. Even if you're not in the market quite yet, I'll have them. So booties and cap, like the thermal cap. So this again, it only matters for a very select few races where the water is quite cold. If you're racing in a typical time of year, this shouldn't be a big deal. Um, Open water tips versus pool tips, swimming in groups, sighting, all that good stuff. So most of us start in a pool and get comfortable in the pool and learn how to breathe, and we feel great in the pool. And then we get into the open water and we are like, oh dear Lord, there's fish swimming on the bottom. It's murky. It looks different. I look up, I don't know where I am, right? So the key to this is practice, practice, and practice some more. Find your local open water swim spot, get some buddies. There are plenty of people in our little community that will go swimming with you. So just ask, don't be afraid to ask, and get out there and practice. Get your buddies close to you if you're nervous about the swim start. Get people that won't mind swimming really close to you and kind of poking you so you get used to that. The swim start can be intimidating at first, right? I recommend, if it's not your thing, to start on the side that is furthest away from the buoys. So your fast people are going to want to be on top of those buoys, direct line. If you're a little afraid, go to the side. It is not the end of the world. You're much better off coming out of the swim comfortable and not having a panic attack than you are getting your best time. So get in that open water, right? Like, please, please, please get out there, get in there, see what a lake feels like. In the morning of your race, most of the time, you're allowed to do a little warm-up swim of some nature. If it is allowed, 100% do that. If it's not, because sometimes there's all sorts of rules with the body of water and safety and things like that, I would splash cold water on my face or just go up to the lake and splash some water on your face just to get a little wet, get a little feel of it. But if they allow practice swim, please do it. There is not a single time I have not done a little warm-up swim if it's allowed. Sighting is tricky. In open waters, depending on where the sun's coming up, sometimes you look up and you're like, I cannot see a single thing. Follow people in front of you. Sight often, right? It's amazing how quickly you can get off course and you look up and you see no buoys. In the pool, what you can do is put some kind of like sticky note or something at the end of the lane and practice looking up and sighting that sticky note and just kind of getting used to that muscle movement. And then swim caps. So some races will provide a swim cap that you have to wear. It's a requirement. Your number will be on it. Other races, your smaller races don't. So I always bring extra swim caps and things like that just in case, even if I know they provide a cap. But some races will, some races won't. It's easy enough just to pack a few if you're unsure. All right, we talked about wetsuit temperature, we talked about sighting, practicing. Okay, mass start versus time trial start. So depending on your races, depending on how they start you. Some of our local races are going to start you in groups, men versus women versus relays. Some are going to start you in your age groups, right? So 30 to 39. Others are going to do a time trial start where you, every whatever, 5 seconds, five people go into the water and they kind of line you up. So that's something to try to find out about the race before you get there, if you can, if there's some athlete guides about the race. It's also good to find out if you start on the beach and run into the water, if you're at water and knee height, if you're wading in the water before you start, if you have to jump off a dock for your start, right? All these things are important and things to practice too. A lot of times, a couple swims before my race, my coach will have practice start. So you're on the beach, you run in, go hard for a few strokes, right? Or you're standing knee height in the water, do a couple run steps, go in and do some strokes. I would say those are the most common. Jumping off of docks, not as common, but I've seen it. And having to tread water before you start, I think only the Ironman in Hawaii still does that. You're not going to see that at most of these races just because of a safety thing. Okay, that's swimming. Questions? Okay. Okay, transition one. So we get out of the water. We have to take our wetsuit off, our goggles, our swim cap, put on some bike shoes, put on a helmet, sunglasses. Most races, all your transition is going to take place in the same area. Your sprints and Olympics almost always is in the same place. Your halves and your fulls sometimes have two different locations. When it's all in the same area, it's easy. All your stuff's right there. When it's in two locations, it's logistically tricky. Usually those races, you're required to drop off your stuff the day before in bags. You can't check it in the morning. Requires a little more prep. But again, I've only seen that in longer distance races. Make sure you practice finding your spot. You're going to get out of the swim. Your heart rate's going to be elevated. You're going to be like, thank the dear Lord, I just finished the swim. And now I have to do all this other stuff, and you're going to forget where your bike is. And then you think your bike is like unique and different. And then you look at transition with hundreds or thousands of bikes, and you're like, wow, all these bikes look the same. So practice. Pick a permanent object, not a garbage can that can move. Something where you can like sight to run to the row of your bike. If your racks have like this number to this number on them, like they're assigned, know what your number is. Sometimes they're like A, B, C, D. Just try to figure out a plan for where your bike is. Seems so simple. I promise you, you're going to get out of the swim and be like, I don't know where anything is. Sunscreen, nutrition, bathroom. So if you're worried about the sun, right? A short sprinter, Olympic, maybe we're not as concerned. If we plan to be out there for half the day, all day, you might want some sunscreen. Sometimes you need to provide that on your own. Bigger races may have that out for you. Get your nutrition. Some races will have a porta potty in transition or near it. Others do not. All things that can happen in transition. We talked about it being a small area and to stay in your space so you don't upset your fellow competitors. And then know where the entrance and exit is. So you have a swim in, a bike out, a bike in, and a run out. It can be all sorts of different areas in transition. Know where all of that stuff is. And then the mount and dismount line. So there will be a line on the road and a bajillion volunteers standing somewhere, and they'll be like, mount your bike here, dismount your bike here. If that is a sanctioned race and you go over those lines, they have a right to disqualify you, give you a penalty, all this stuff. So slow down. You're not winning the race the last, 50 feet up to the mountain line. Slow down, be cautious, take your time, get off the bike. I'm not sure anyone here is like doing flying mounts and dismounts. So just slow down, get off, be aware of people around you. That's transition one. Any questions? Okay. The bike. Again, we talked about the difference in the kit. So you're going to be wearing the same thing that you swam in. As far as a bike you need, this is another question I get a lot. Like, I don't have a triathlon bike. Can I do triathlon? Absolutely. If you are doing one of these small sprint races, one of those smaller Olympics in the area, and all you have is a hybrid bike, go for it. I've seen all sorts of stuff at our local Lake T and Cedar Lake races, mountain bikes, hybrid bikes, a bike that just probably got pulled out of the garage yesterday, right? So if you are just curious about triathlon and you want to go out there and try it, bring what you have, right? Now, I would say the longer you start going, it is definitely more beneficial to have a road bike, right? If you're into this, at some point you're going to be like, I'm not going to keep pedaling this heavy bike around. I'm interested in a road bike. You can do that. Road bikes tend to be more friendly for our day-to-day riding, for our group rides. If you are only going to have one bicycle and you want to do triathlon, I would probably recommend starting with a road bike. Triathlon bikes come into play. Again, the longer that you go, the more comfortable triathlon bikes are. So if you're like Hunter, right, I'm really into 70.3s. I'm signed up for 2 this year. I want to keep going with this. I would probably start recommending thinking about saving for a triathlon bike. So triathlon bikes have these aero bars on them, which essentially allow you to kind of lay down on them, for lack of a better term. Um, it's more comfortable over a longer distance because you have some additional support. Now you do have to get used to this position. This isn't natural for your body. And bike fitting is super, super important. The longer and longer you go, I would really recommend that. Um, on road bikes, you can get clip-on aero bars. And that is definitely an option too. So again, if you have one bike, you like your road bike, you're curious about the aero bars, you can get clip-ons. Um, with the triathlon bike, so what is going on with these bars here? So pretty much when you're in that laying down position, that's where all your shifting is. And then when you come up to the bars of the bike, that's where your brakes are. So triathlon bikes aren't user friendly for like your everyday group rides because it's pretty dangerous to not be on your brakes at all times in a group ride. So that's why you don't often see that. Now, in our small little woman on wheels rides and things like that, right? If you're trying to get some rides into your triathlon, like totally bring it, come ride with us. It's no big deal. But like if you're showing up to some of these bigger shop rides, you're probably going to get some looks. So just be careful. And if you're not sure, maybe call that shop ahead of time and ask. Um, but as far as racing goes, triathlon bikes are quite comfy over that longer distance. Clipping in versus flat pedals. Most of us start on flat pedals and then eventually transition to clipping in. You can just get a little more power in each pedal stroke. Again, the longer you go, the more beneficial all these things become. Um, Shoes. So you can see in this top picture, my shoes have these Velcro straps and kind of have some openings. So these are triathlon specific shoes. And the idea is that your feet dry a little quicker in them. Downside to that, if it's a little chilly when you get on the bike, your feet are going to be a little cold. Socks versus no socks, just an opinion thing that people have. I wear no socks on the bike. I wear socks on the run. But if you're not sure how it's going to feel, I would recommend practicing without the socks if you want to do that. If you want to take the time to put on the socks, that's fine too. If it's a little chillier race, I might consider putting on socks. But most of the time, I'm just popping on these shoes and my feet dry as they go. Helmet, obviously that's a requirement in these races. You are not allowed to touch your bike in transition until that helmet is clipped on your head. That is like a big rule. People will yell at you. And same thing, you have to run your bike back to your rack and rack your bike before you can unclip your helmet. Again, bigger race, having USAT officials, that is a thing. They will be on you about that. Even at League T, people are gonna be like, clip your helmet, you have to clip your helmet, right? Like you're not gonna get a penalty at these smaller races, but it's a big safety thing. Some races, as you can see in this top picture, I got a sticker on my helmet. So Most of the time, if it's a sanctioned race, there'll be some kind of sticker on your helmet that will be provided. If it's not provided, obviously you don't need it. Um, Tires and flat kit. So obviously, if you're on a road bike or triathlon bike, you're going to have road specific tires. Um, Tires is a whole nother big topic for discussion as far as like what kind of tire do you run. But the big thing is to have a flat kit to be prepared. So if you have tubes, have an extra tube somewhere, some tire levers, a CO2. If you're running tubeless, you want some darts and some CO2. If you don't know what tubeless is, you don't need to stress about it. That's a whole nother lesson. Or you can message me for some info on it. On-bike nutrition storage. So triathlon bikes are going to have a lot of little compartments for nutrition. I don't have a great picture of it here. This top picture, I have a little thing they call a bento box up there, which has my snacks in it. I also put a lot of snacks down my sports bra. Put snacks where you can. I actually got a new race kit this year, and it has lots of pockets on the side. A lot of triathlon kits will have some pockets in the back. So make sure you have a plan on where you're going to put your nutrition and a way you can access it efficiently on the bike. And obviously water bottles, as far as how many water bottles you should bring, that's all dependent on the race and the distance. If you've got specific questions, I'm more than happy to chat that over. Drafting versus non-drafting, I'm going to guess everyone here is doing a non-drafting race. There are specific rules about how far back and to the side you can be. It's different for pros, amateurs, different race series and things like that. That's again where that rule book comes into play. If it's a good old-fashioned USAT race, I would need to double check the numbers now. How many feet back, but you can't draft, right? Like period, end of story. You can get a penalty if there's a ref there. Again, they're most of the time more worried about the front of the race, but they can be mixed throughout the pack. At your more local races, again, in our training, they've taught us like try to give people a warning first, like, hey, looking a little close, back up, right? We're not just like throwing out drafting penalties left and right, but if someone's like very intentionally sitting on someone's wheel, that's not cool. So don't do it, please. If you're going up a hill or around a 180-degree turn, it's normal for you to clump together. Refs aren't going to be mad about that. But if you're on a straightaway and you're sitting on someone's wheel, that's not okay. And it's a safety thing too for us age groupers. Okay, so a few other tips for the bike. Race morning, click through all your gears, check your brakes, make sure everything's working. If you've got electronic shifting bike, make sure you have your batteries, those puppers are working, just make sure everything's looking good race morning. Talked about helmet has to be clipped. Hydration, plain water versus electrolytes. Nutrition is a huge, 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 huge topic. Moral of the story, you're going to want more than plain water. You're going to want some electrolytes in some form or fashion on that bike. Being familiar with the rules, hydration and fuel stations, aid stations. You should be pretty clear on how many stops a course has for aid stations. So check on that. A sprint may not always have an aid station. It's a much shorter distance, but anything longer usually has some. So check what miles those things are at. They can get pretty hectic if the race is big. They can be a very busy, dangerous place. Water bottles flying everywhere, people trying to grab bottles. You've got volunteers giving you bottles, which nothing against volunteers, but the middle school girls soccer team, this is like the first triathlon they're watching and they're trying to hand you a water bottle. So sit up, slow down, get your water. Again, you're not winning the race flying through transit or those aid stations. If a swim gets canceled, that is a thing in triathlon. Swim gets canceled for whatever reason, you're going to have some kind of time trial start off the bike. Each race is going to handle that a little differently, but you can do a bike run. Some races will opt to do a run bike run. You know, hope everything goes off as planned for your race. But that is a thing. And then I briefly mentioned bike fitting. There is this false idea that you have to be fast and a big racer to get a bike fit, and only people that are fast and good can have a bike fit. No, we all deserve to be comfortable on the bicycle. Um, Fitting can change your life, make you a lot comfier, can really help with aches and pains and saddle sores. So have a lot of good folks in our area. If you're interested in a fit, shoot me a message. I can send you some names. But it is definitely a worthy investment. And my endless line. The longer you go, the more important this is going to become. We might be able to fudge 12 miles on the bicycle. 56 to 112 miles on a bicycle can be very, very painful when your back is in 9,000 different directions and cramping and your quads are screaming. So everyone deserves a bike fit, not just fast people. Breaking that stigma. Okay, transition two. So we're flying in off our bike, gonna put our run stuff on. So again, make sure you have a plan to find your spot. Same kind of deal. You got, if you want to put sunscreen on, figure out a bathroom situation, nutrition. And really only in Ironman distance have I seen people get out of their triathlon kit and hop into a running outfit. Makes sense when you're potentially out there for 15, 16, 17 hours, but plenty of people will just wear the same kit. But in 140.6 distance, there will be changing areas if you wish. If anyone is doing an Ironman, there are like some more logistics that go into that, and I'm more than happy to like talk to you off this call about some of the details of that and setting up your bags and stuff like that. Race belt. So when we go on the run, we have to put our little paper number on. They make all sorts of race belts out there that attach your number. Some of them have spots for gels. I know some people have like water bottle waist belts, all sorts of things. All of that stuff is cool. Wear what works for you, but you have to have that number on you. Um, be just because you're wearing the number for the run, usually we don't pin them like you see in like running races or things like that. This is just a belt that you clip on, the number's already on there. Usually 98% of the time you just wear the number for the run. I have done one race out in California where you go on a military base and we had to wear the number for the bike as well for a security thing. So that's one of those weird things that you have to read in the athlete guide, and they'll drill in your head at the athlete briefing, hey, you have to wear your number on your bike, because that's a weird thing that I've never had to do anywhere else. And then know where the entrance and exit are again. So where is the bike in and where is the run out in that transition area? Questions about that? Okay, run. Run is probably what people usually are like most familiar with. I feel like a lot of people have been runners at some point in their life. Obviously, you need your shoes, your race belt. If you need any kind of hat, visor, sunglasses, headbands, things like that. Again, a 5K, we may be able to fudge some of this stuff. If you're running a marathon out there, you probably want some kind of protection on your head from the sun. Watches, right? If you have any kind of watch you want to wear, socks versus no socks. Again, that's a thing people talk about all the time. A sprint race, I'm usually not wearing socks because I'm trying to go a little quicker, but totally fine if you want to put socks on. Olympic and up, I'd probably recommend socks. I think it's worth the few seconds over getting blisters and having your day ruined. Probably doesn't apply to most people. They're starting to get some rules around shoes and stack height and all that stuff with this carbon shoe thing that's been going on. Again, I think if you have access to the shoes at the store, they're probably going to be fine. But that's like a newer thing in triathlon with all this shoe innovation. Water and nutrition. Again, find out where the aid stations are on the course, what they are supplying. I'm a nervous Nelly, so I always carry my little handheld water bottle, even if the water is hot because it's been sitting in the sun for 4 hours. I'm like, at least I have something. And then it's got a little zipper pocket where I put gels. And again, I'm stuffing gels down my sports bra and pockets and all sorts of places. Talked about the race belt. What else do I have on here? Mm, if you're new to running, please go to a run store and get like appropriate running shoes, shoes that fit. Don't be running in like pair of sneakers you've had forever. My back got wrecked a couple years ago because I didn't buy new shoes in a quick enough time. It's just an important thing, right? You know, get a good pair of running shoes, go to a running store, at least for your first time, to have them look at you and help you um, get an appropriate shoe if you are new to running. All right. Questions about the run? Okay. Nutrition. So we could have probably a month-long series about nutrition, and I'm not a nutritionist, dietitian, or any of that good stuff, but I read a lot, I listen to a lot, I've done a lot of my own research, I've tried a lot of products. You have to find a thing that works for you. What works for me doesn't work for you, doesn't work for the next person, and our tummies and our sweat rates and all this stuff, right? This is something usually when we start off with triathlon, we're quite frankly pretty bad at it. And then as time goes on and the longer you get and you experience bonking, you're like, I'm gonna figure this out. Um, so like I said, you need some kind of electrolytes in some form or fashion. That's gonna give you all that salt and sugar you need quickly. Um, a zillion brands out there for this stuff. I'll share with you what I use, but again, my stuff isn't the end all be all. This is just what I found that tastes good to me, works for my tummy, has the ingredients I want in it. So I'm a big Scratch Labs fan. They have a bunch of flavors, pretty well-known company. We are connected with Precision Fuel and Hydration and Salt Stick. So Precision Fuel and Hydration is this bottom right picture with the 1500, 1000, and 500. So those are like sodium something numbers. I really like their stuff. It's easy on the stomach. This is what I used for my Ironman. Now I use more of a mix of scratch and this stuff. But the cool thing with Precision is you can hop on a 20-minute free phone call with folks that work for them, that are athletes themselves, that are educated in this stuff, and they can help you come up with a plan. So they've helped me a bit with that, and I fine-tuned it from there. But there's an option for that. And then Salt Stick has some kind of mixes too. So we have discount codes for Precision and Salt Stick if you're interested. Salt tabs is something I didn't play around with until I started going longer distance. Again, if we're doing an hour, 2 hour race, this stuff is important, but not as important. You know, anything longer, you're really going to need to consider some of this stuff. A lot of these drink mixes have salt in them. Sometimes people need an extra boost. Everyone's got their own method. As far as things to eat, bunch of stuff out there. Waffles, gels, chews. Some people like actual granola bars. In Ironman, you will see all sorts of things. People will pack a picnic in their bags. I've done the bike personal needs drop-off organizing volunteer job, and I saw it all in there. Coolers. I mean, people stuffed all sorts of stuff into those bags, but the common stuff is going to be gels and chews and things like that. Again, gels, a bajillion brands out there. Precision has gels that I like, and I like the SIS gels, which are this pink thing right here. So the gels that I have settled on are things you can use without water. They go down pretty easily. I used goos when I first started, and those are quite thick, and I personally needed water to get those things down. So I have moved away to that and had something that I can consume even when I'm not near a water source. A huge hot topic in triathlon these days is carbs per hour. We need way more carbs per hour than we think. If you're curious about numbers, pros are doing like 100 to 120 grams of carbs an hour. I've been trying to get myself up to, I was doing close to 70 grams of carbs an hour last year. trying to go a little higher this year with utilizing some carb drink mixes and not just relying on gels for that. Um, this stuff can get pretty complicated if you get into it. And again, the longer you go, the more important this stuff is. If you're doing a middle or long distance race, you need to be eating and drinking even when you don't want to be eating and drinking, because what you're eating and drinking now is going to save you on that run. If you wait until you're hungry and you're thirsty, you're already bonking, and it's hard to come back from that. Eat and drink, eat and drink, eat and drink. Just keep that in your head. We need to practice our nutrition. So your long rides and your long runs are great times to bring all that nutrition, try stuff, try new stuff. It's better for your tummy to give you a hard time on your Saturday ride than it is in your first race of the season. And it's just good to have a plan. How often am I eating? How am I reminding myself to eat? What am I drinking? Oh, this water bottle is a little hard to get. I didn't realize that, right? Like you have to practice this stuff. Again, I still will have in my training plan close to a race, practice race day nutrition, right? On your long ride and your long run. You got to eat. So like I said, eat your breakfast. I bring a snack. You eat during the race. You obviously need to eat after the race, even though it might be hard. All that good stuff. Know what works as a pre-race dinner. Again, this is stuff to like practice and figure out. It's Friday night and you want to try your pasta and meatballs before your long ride on Saturday. Like figure out a plan and practice it. They call nutrition like the fourth discipline of triathlon, right? It's complicated, it's important, and there's a bunch of products out there, so it can be hard. So ask your buddies what they use, borrow. They've got a couple little one-off packets, get them. I try to give away a lot of nutrition in this group just for people to try stuff because I know it can be really intimidating and hard to know. A great website is called thefeed.com. You can buy single products there, and this stuff is expensive, is probably another thing to be aware of. A box of gels can be 50, 60 bucks. But at the feed, you can buy single gels or like 3 gels. So you can try, oh, Honey Stinger has 5 flavors. Let me buy one of each flavor. Let me get the single packets of scratch mix. And then that way you can try flavors, see if you like them, see if your tummy likes it before you're investing, I mean, for a season, hundreds of dollars into this stuff. But don't be afraid to ask your friends to try some stuff here and there, because usually they got stuff that doesn't work for them or 8 billion boxes of something. Okay. This Stacy Sims Roar Buck, a ton of people like, so that's why I popped it in here. I think there's a lot of useful stuff in there about fueling, training, aging, hormones, all that good stuff. You know, if you struggle in this area or have certain restrictions or diet things and whatnot, you know, it doesn't hurt to talk to nutritionists and folks like that. All right, any questions about this?
I was going to say, is there a nutritionist that kind of specializes particularly in women? And for me, an older woman, because I struggle so much with nutrition.
Yeah. So this question has been asked on the page, so I can dig in that and see what was recommended. There's a woman that's done a talk for us. I can send you her name too. Let me just make a note. But yes, because this can be very hard to figure out. So yeah, I'll shoot you a message, Jen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about this? Okay. But yeah, if you're confused on where to start and just want to spend X amount of dollars and try stuff, go on thefeed.com. It's a great resource. And they always have sales and stuff where you get free water bottles or free products to try. So helpful.
And they also have a program where the more you spend, like then you earn store credits.
Yeah, you get credit. Again, some of these like podcasts with pros and stuff, you can, or if you're a USA Triathlon member, you get like a $20 credit a few times a year, right? Like they definitely they have a lot of good stuff out there to get you to buy your stuff and get you invested.
I definitely second that. They've been fantastic ways to try just
stuff
you're not going to necessarily even see in the stores here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think people get intimidated with it because there's so many brands out there, right? And again, like I can have my thing dialed and you're gonna try it, Jen, and your stomach's gonna be like, hell no, right?
Right, right.
Yeah, it's a tough topic, and I'm still learning, right? Like it's one of those things that I kind of got down for a 70.3, but I'm dying on the back half of the run. Now I'm going to do an Ironman, and that's when I really I leaned into all of this. I revamped it. I got it dialed, and I've been with that plan pretty much now. So where I'm at right now with things is I'm going to experiment more this year with high carb drink mixes. So liquid carbs instead of all gels, and seeing if just carrying a little less stuff, and as I'm trying to increase that carbs per hour. So it's like I say that to be like it's always a learning thing, right? I'm going to do my 13th and 14th 70.3 this year, and I'm still adjusting and learning, and there's been a lot of innovation in this area too the past few years with brands. So
I think our bodies change, and
yeah.
even if you're careful with your nutrition the week before a race, who knows, some chemical where we are in our cycles, I
Right.
mean, there's
Yeah.
so much more
Yeah.
comes into play, no matter.
Yeah.
I think I get it just as soon as I think I'm like, okay, I'm pretty good here. I'm like, nah, the
Yeah.
next race.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a tough topic.
yeah, it is.
Okay. Coaching versus online plans versus self-coaching. There's a way for everyone, right? Again, if you're starting out and seeing if you even like triathlon, right? You don't have to invest all this money in a coach. Talk to your buddies, join a tri group, get out there. I'm happy to give you some guidance. If you tell me you're swimming once every 2 weeks, I'm probably going to encourage you to swim more than that, right? So we don't need to stress about this if we're just starting out. We start to have goals, we want to get a little faster, we have a big A race, there are options to get some guidance. Coaches, there's all sorts of price ranges, abilities, styles, things like that. If you're serious about a coach, I'm happy to send you a list of names of people I know that I recommend, friends, people that I've used, so on and so forth. Some coaches will want more of a full year or recommend more of a full year commitment. Some coaches are happy to be like, hey, I've got a race in June. I want to train with you for these 4 months. Can you help me out? Right. So everyone has a different style. Communicating with your coach, right? I have learned I'm a huge pain in the ass. You can imagine my schedule is absolutely insane. I need someone that I can talk to every day if I need to as my life changes. So I've learned that's what I need in a coach, but some of these coaches have, one phone call a week or once a month, or here's your plan, contact me if you need to, right? Again, depending on what your goals are, is depending on where you may land with this. But if you're interested, shoot me a message. I can send you a list of names. There are online plans out there that people follow. Those are fine, right? They give you some guidance. I think what those lack is hey, we're all probably working full time on here. Maybe some of you are moms, maybe some of you have partners. Life can get busy, and sometimes it could be helpful having that person to be like, it's okay to switch these things around, right? And not just strictly following this online plan. But it can give you a structure, and it is less expensive. Some people self-coach, and that's fine too, or they just go out with their friends when they go out. Again, if you don't have a lot of goals, or if you have a lot of knowledge, great, right? The more goals you have, the more I would recommend a coach. They can just help you organize things, right? And you can say, hey, I have this many hours a week to work out, and they do it. It's magic. And then you don't have to think about it, right? So I every Sunday I text my coach, this is what the week's looking like. I got this day, that this day, I can only swim these days, and they plug and play, and I wake up and I see my plan, right? So if you're choosing an option on your own, that's fine. You just have to budget that time for coming up with a plan for your week. So you're not waking up in the morning being like, wait, what am I supposed to do today? And then, right, just join your local tri clubs, talk to people on Women on Wheels. We're more than happy to give you some pointers. I am not a coach myself, but I have enough experience so I could give you some pointers, right? But talk to people, right? Again, There's nice people out here. We want to help. Okay, training tips. So, triathlon is unique because we are doing 3 sports. So there's some things we should be doing. Brick workouts is a big buzzword. People will be like, I got my brick today. And you're like, wait, you're lugging around a brick? I don't understand. What a brick is you do a hard bike or a long bike, and then you immediately get off and run for a few minutes. So it's getting your legs used to that transition. At first, your legs are like, wait, I'm confused. We were doing this one thing and now you're doing this other motion and I feel weird. So usually, again, it's after a long ride or a hard ride where you're a little more tired. And then you go out and run for a certain amount of minutes. You don't have to go run for an hour. Usually it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on how long you're racing. So definitely do that. If you're doing a sprint, you do your ride, I would get off and work my way up to running 10 minutes off the bike and training. Swim in open water prior to race day, I already harped on that. Planning your schedule ahead of time, I already harped on that. Practicing your race nutrition, keep saying that. Talk to your family and friends about the time commitment. Triathlon's a tough sport. It's a lot of training. If you have family, if you have a partner, if you've got girls you go to brunch with every Sunday, right? Like it's a commitment, and some of your priorities may change if you're training for a race. And so talk to those people or get those people involved with your training in some way. It's just an important thing to keep in mind. Plan for an increase in food consumption. You can get a little hungry when you're training for this, or you go out and ride your bike all day. So that might look a little different. Local tri club or friends, we talked about that. Building up to the distances, right? Like, I think most of you guys are athletes in some form or fashion already, but we don't have to go like right away and do the full distance of the thing in our training, right? We build up to that stuff. Understanding some basics of the bike can be important. Stuff can go wrong, right? We hope it doesn't, but it can. So like carrying your flat kits, having some idea what the parts are called is helpful. Importance of tune-ups. I always get my bike looked at by a mechanic before, the week before the race, run through the gears, make sure everything's tight and looking good. If I fly with my bike, I always get it looked by someone. It costs money. I don't even need it half of the time, but it's my peace of mind. Hey, I just invested all this time and money to get to this race. I'm going to pay the $50 to have Joey, the mechanic, tell me it looks good, it's shifting good, and everything's right. So, some local races may have a local shop that sends a guy to help you out. Bigger races are going to have a whole shop in their little village that can help with tune-ups and, like little race day stuff and things like that. A lot of the towns we race in have bike shops too. But yeah, get friendly with your local shop and get your bike tuned up. It's going to need more than the once a year love. Rest days are important. Incorporate them into training. Finally learning that lesson this year. So it is important. Take them. Resting is training too. We don't need to feel bad if we take a day off or need to skip a day or if we have a cold or things like that. It can be hard to get our type A minds around that, but it's important. And then recovery tools, stretching, yoga, massages, things like that. Might want to invest in some of that if we're increasing our training and have some aches and pains. There's the free stuff we can do at home. And then if you got a few extra funds, I don't think a massage usually hurts. Questions about any of that? What else did I have here? Traveling with the bike, keeping similar habits. Yeah, when race week comes around, we don't all of a sudden need to change stuff. Just do what's been working for you, right? Easily we can get influenced by our friends and people around us, but what you've been doing has probably been working, so don't go change everything. Keep your routine, keep your flow. Snacks. Another good thing for races is the bathroom lines can get quite long because there's never enough porta potties. Plan ahead and give yourself time. Talked about transitions. I think there's all of that. All right, other random rules. Again, when these are things we shouldn't be doing in any race, but if there's an official, these are going to be things they're going to be looking out for. Littering. We come in and disrupt these towns. So please just be respectful, right? Yes, if it accidentally your gel packet flies off and you don't notice it, accidents happen, but like don't be just chucking your trash on the road. If there's aid stations on the course, they will have sections where it's like throw your trash here, last chance to discard your trash. Follow those things because there's volunteers there to pick up all of our trash. And if someone does see you intentionally littering, you can get a penalty. Speed traps, I've talked about. That's happened to me in a couple 70.3 races where it's a steep downhill into a scary corner. So they have a timing mat at the beginning and end. And if you're over a certain speed, you are disqualified. No ifs, ands, or buts. You cannot argue that thing. So if you do have a bike computer, that's easy. If you don't, just go slower than you think you need to. And sometimes they'll have one of those, like when you're driving a car and it tells you your speed, whatever those things are. Sometimes they will have those. Just kind of depends. So I think I've done a speed trap at least twice in racing. Both were 70.3s. No headphones. This is a hard thing for some folks. A lot of people train with music and things like that. I totally get it. If you are very dependent on that, I would practice not being so dependent on that. Not allowed to wear headphones. Not allowed to carry your phone and have the music blaring or any of that stuff. It's a safety thing. You need to hear what's going on around you. Same thing with cell phones. I know some people use them as like computer and navigation and stuff like that. It gets tricky. All these courses are going to be marked for you. You're not going to need your computer. This isn't gravel racing, adventure racing where you need your GPS file. They're going to be marked. We talked about kits, sleeves versus no sleeves. In certain levels of triathlon, that's a rule. Probably in what you guys are doing, not going to matter. Don't draft. I already talked about that. And outside assistance isn't allowed. So, you can't have your buddy go meet you halfway through the course and give you all your nutrition. So you got to use the designated aid stations, the designated personal needs stations if you're doing an Ironman. If you have a mechanical, if they have support on the course, you can use that, but you can't have someone like drive and fix your flat for you. All right. Questions about any of the few rules? Okay, my final tips. Visualize race day. I'm big into thinking about that. The finish lines excite me a lot. So oftentimes when I'm struggling, I'll visualize what that will look like and what that will feel like. Enjoy the process, right? We're going to have hard days. We're going to have days where we don't want to wake up and train and things like that. But it is a process. And quite honestly, like we spend most of our time training compared to racing. So if we're not enjoying any of the training, that's going to be kind of tough. So whatever your process is, if that's by yourself, if that's with buddies, if that's, doing local races before your big race, right? Enjoy the process. Take the pictures. I'm a big picture person. I am a fangirl of so many pro athletes. So take the pictures of you in these spaces with your friends, find your idols out there and just enjoy the moment. Explore the towns. We go to a lot of cool places when we race. Cool little spots in town. Like if you're spending a few days there, go enjoy the town. Go see the sights. Buy the memorabilia. I'm giving you permission to buy all the t-shirts and sweatshirts and swag. It's fun. You want to remember it. If it makes you happy, rock on. Soak up the finish line, right? It is such a fun time. That's like when all that hard work pays off. Just really enjoy that moment, even if you're like dying inside. If you're doing your first triathlon, your first sprint, your first Olympic, your first half, your first full, your first whatever, you only get one first. Like enjoy every moment of that. I can probably still tell you in too many details my first of these things. And you only get one first. So enjoy that moment. And buy the pictures and have fun because then you get pictures like this. And I still get choked up almost every time I look at this picture, right? These are the moments that like we won't forget and why we do what we do. And you enjoy that finish line with your friends. And my mom's hand is right there and my fiance is right there. And it's like this picture one day will be blown up in my workout room whenever I get my own space. All right. questions. Hopefully most of you know how to reach me. You can take a screenshot of this. You can message me. You can email me. You can text me. You can call me. I will talk about triathlon all the time. I go on phone calls with people all the time. Hey, my friend's doing a triathlon. You want to help? Hey, I'm helping this person with running, but they want to do a triathlon. Can you talk to them? I do it all the time. So please don't be afraid to reach out and ask me questions. But do you guys have any questions? And what is everyone training for? Because I want to know that too.
Well, I'm just doing the Lake T
Okay.
ones.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing. But I'm coming to the Lake Placid training.
Yep. That'd be so fun. Have you been up to Placid?
No, I've never been there. Is it fun?
Oh, it's one of my favorite places. There's nothing like it.
Yeah,
Absolutely
so
nothing
I
like
mean,
it.
I swim 3 times a week actually, and I bike. I'm not a runner at all.
Yep.
At all.
Sounds good. Yep, you're gonna fall in love with Lake Placid. I mean, like the swim is the most beautiful thing you'll ever do. The
Mhm.
bike is stunning in all its downhills and uphills and all its glory. It's absolutely stunning. And the run, you get to run by the ski jump, which is pretty cool to me. One of the pictures in here had me in front of the ski jump. I had a couple goals when I went to Lake Placid besides racing the thing. It was to get a good picture in front of the ski jump. It was to finish so Mike Riley could say my name. But the ski jump was like, I had to get that picture. I was ready. I was like, I can't look like a silly goose right here. I need to have the gel out of my mouth. I can't look like I'm dying. I need to be running because I need this picture. Lake Placid's awesome. We'll have fun. But Lake T, someone put something in the chat.
Because I've never done one before. So, so I figured I'd start with Lake T.
Yeah. Start with Lake T. And that's like how we all started. Local, small, fun. You can train on the course beforehand, right? Not intimidating. It's inexpensive, right? That's the like this stuff can get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to enter the thing. So
Yeah.
cool. What do we got in here? Discount codes. Yes, I've been meaning to make like a full sheet of them, so I'm gonna work on that. First sprint is in June, Olympic in July, half Ironman September. So is that Jones Beach? I'm guessing is September. Maybe.
Yes, I don't know if you can hear me. I am outside now.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. My family is in New York, so I figured it'd be good, and it seems like it's pretty flat, so I thought good start.
Yeah, they shut down that highway for you guys, I'm pretty sure, and you just go up and down.
Yeah,
right? Yep.
absolutely.
That'll be a good one. What sprint and Olympic are you doing?
So I don't know if it's the Bridgeport or the Litchfield. So
Okay.
it's the first or second week of June.
Okay.
And then Olympic in July, and I don't remember that name either, but it's in Connecticut.
Okay.
So
cool.
I haven't tried open water swimming yet, and it's been pretty cold. So fingers
I
crossed
know.
I'm able to.
It has been cold. I was laughing the past couple of weeks. Everyone's talking about their Lake T passes, and I'm like, yeah, it's still very cold. But yeah, Bridgeport or Litchfield, those are two polar opposite races. One is very flat and one is very hilly. Olympic in July. I'm trying to think what that one could be.
Probably went for the flatter one, knowing me.
Yeah,
I'm very
Bridgeport is
new to
going to
this
be
sport.
flatter for sure.
Okay.
What do we have for July on the calendar here for an Olympic? So Litchfield Hills has an Olympic in July.
That might be it.
Maybe that one. Yeah. And yeah, that's probably it if you're staying around here. So yeah, that'll be good. You'll get all the hills out of the way before Jones Beach.
Hopefully. Anyone doing those races? Want to see anybody there?
No. I'm not good at racing short distance. I'm like much more suited for 70.3s. So I
That's
won't
awesome.
be at any of those. I'm going to Pat Griskus in June for my a little officiating practicum. But that, I think they do a sprint and Olympic still, but I think that's, yeah, June 15th is Pat Griskus. So I'll be at that one being an official, but other than that, I'll be at the Lake Tees and the Cedar Lakes hanging out.
Very cool.
But Jones Beach, there's a lot of folks in our group doing that one. So maybe we can get you guys all to meet up at some point. Are you part of a group or anything?
No, so that would be something else that I'd be very interested in
Okay.
talking to you about.
Where do you live, if you don't mind me
I'm
asking?
in Vernon. I definitely wanted to do some of the group rides.
Okay.
I needed to get fitted and get a road bike.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I've been training all indoors. So now that it's nicer out-ish,
Yeah.
I'm hoping I can meet up with some of the group rides next week.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah, no, definitely reach out to me. And if you want to hop on a phone call to talk stuff more as you get closer, I'm happy to do that too.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. And yeah, you're close to me. I'm in Manchester right now, so we're like neighbors.
Oh, cool.
All right, what's everyone else training for?
My long-term goal is getting to 70.3 in
Okay.
the summer of 2025 because I got a big birthday, so that's kind of my goal.
Perfect.
But I'm really struggling with getting over my swimming phobias, and it's not the open water. I actually love open water, and
Yeah.
I'm fine by myself. But you put anybody near me, and I forget how to swim, and
Yeah.
I almost panic, and I'm just. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to get over that because I really want to.
Yeah. Practice, practice, practice.
It's just so different on
I know
race day.
you have a lot of good friends to go with you too.
Yeah.
Are you able to get to any of the swim clinics with Kathy and Jane?
Yeah, I'm going to try and get to
Okay.
those in June. Even when I go out to the side, I don't know.
Yeah. So like this year, your goal is going to be to work on that, right? To get you to a 70.3.
Exactly. And then, and all the nutrition and transition stuff, but
Yeah.
that I feel confident that with practice, that's going to come.
Right.
The swim, I don't know. I mean, I've got to get it out of my head, I
No,
guess.
it's hard. It's hard. And like we can do all the things to like keep ourselves separated and give us space too. But like, especially if the goal is a 70.3, we're talking thousands of people, right? And
Yes.
all different abilities, self-seated. Even in the middle of that pack, you're going to be having people trying to qualify for worlds and stuff. Like it's a dynamic and not everyone's nice, unfortunately. Right.
Well, I've also found, even if I self-seed and I start near the back, but there's other people like me doing that. And we're all, like people still swimming on top of each other because everybody's weak.
Yeah.
Doing so. I don't know. I've got to figure it out. Maybe it's just more practice so that I'm more confident swimming, but yeah, I really, really want to do a half next year.
Well, no, and the thing is, if you really want to do something, you're gonna like figure it out and keep practicing and do it, right? And it is hard, right? And even at this point in my career, I'm like pretty comfortable with it. But when I was out at Xterra Worlds this year, that was like the roughest swim I had ever done. And I'm like, what the heck? Like for the first half of it, I'm getting like pummeled. I cannot get away from people. And like the whole time, it's like, just stay calm, right? Like if you can get out of the swim and not be panicking, you've like won the swim, right? It's so hard. If you're not one of these high school, college swimmer people, it is so hard for us. What do they call us? Like adult onset swimmers or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's so hard for us to get better at swimming because of like the technique and time. And most of us aren't going to go to the pool 6 days a week, right?
Right.
We have our 2 or 3 days that we're going to go, and the idea is, if we're new, we're going to get a little faster, right? I'm at the point where unless I like hire a coach and go swim 6 days a week, I'm probably not going to get faster, but I can get more comfortable, right? And I can get more fit for the sense I can come out of the water and I feel okay. I'm not like gassed getting on my bike, but I can like actually the thing I'm good at.
Yeah. I just feel like with swimming and biking, you can always go a little bit slower. Well, with swimming, I mean, you can go a little bit slower or else at some point you can't, I don't know, tread water. It's just, to me, that's just a little bit different. If you're running and you're tired, you can always go to the side of the road and
exactly.
Yeah. So I think, that, and I do wear music in the water, but now, I can't in a race.
Right.
Most of them, you can't even have the little buoy. So there's taking away all my security blankets.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll have a wetsuit, right?
Yes.
That's like, you'll have that. So.
Yes. Yes.
We'll work on it.
Yeah. That's my big goal.
Cool. Any other races people have lined up? Lake T was her first. Yeah, that's good stuff. So, well, that was definitely longer than my hour. But I hope you guys got something out of it. And again, as we get closer, as you sign up for stuff, reach out. I've done a lot of local races. There's some I for sure haven't, but I have done a lot, or I can point you to someone that's done it if you have questions about it, or just training, nutrition, rides, things like that. For our group, we have all sorts of stuff coming up May on group rides, fun time trial races, the tri clinics with Kathy and Jane. The ball's rolling, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm getting those wetsuits. I should have them for that Lake Placid trip. So if you guys are interested in them, I'm racing in mine for the first time this weekend. I wore it in the pool the other day because I was not going in the open water. So I was that person at the pool wearing my wetsuit, and I was like, "Hey everyone, don't mind me." Luckily, I swim with like a lot of triathletes in the morning. They were like, "What are you training for?" And I'm like, "Thank you." But good stuff.
Exciting.
It is exciting. Like we're finally at race season. I feel. Yeah.
I do have one last question.
Yeah.
I thought of wearing my wetsuit in the pool, but I wasn't sure. Were you able to like work out in it long?
I just wore it for my warm up. So I pretty much like usually I wouldn't do that. Because I'll get in the open water or whatever. I've had the wetsuit for a few years, but this is a brand new wetsuit for me. And I was like, I should make sure this thing, one, fits, and two, isn't like chafing anywhere obvious. Yeah. So
right.
Go ahead.
Have you tried that spray with like to help with chafing for the wetsuit? I found one on Amazon. I thought about it, but I'm hurt so much in the run and bike portion that I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah. A lot of people use like that, like the Body Glide or something, right? There's sprays and there's like sticks to help you like get the wetsuit on and off that you can put on like before the swim and the chafing. My old wetsuit kind of almost gave me like hickeys pretty much around my neck. That hurt a little bit. The new wetsuit has like a very nice neck. That was the first thing I noticed. I was like, oh, this thing like isn't choking me up here. So they're all just a little different, but you can put that stuff on for sure. And on the bike, there's like a thing called chamois cream that you can put on the padding or on yourself that helps with some of those sore spots. But if you fit your bike, it shouldn't be as much of a needed.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. All new stuff trying soon. So we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right. Well, I'll let you guys go. Thanks for joining. Reach out if you need to, please. I'll keep saying it because I don't want you to be afraid. Please. And then there's a lot of great women in our group that love triathlon. I've mentioned Kathy and Jane a few times. They've been racing triathlon for decades. They've traveled all over the world. They're in Florida right now to race St. Anthony's this weekend, and they're great resources too. They've been there, done that. So got a lot of good folks in this group doing tries, and happy to talk to you. So enjoy your night, everyone.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.